Do you think that you are starting to outgrow your beginner motorcycle? Are you ready to get into the middleweights? But before you do that, here are 5 signs that you are no longer a beginner and starting to move to the intermediate category. Let's talk about that in this episode of Behind a Desk. Alright, so the first sign that you are kinda no longer a beginner is you instinctively put just one foot down on the ground when you come to a stoplight. You no longer do this. Waddle your way to the front and stop with 2 feet down. Now, I admit there are times when I still kind of do this, especially when I'm on a big ADV that's a little bit heavy and tall, because, well, it's tall and a little bit heavy.
You're not that big.
So the reason why that it's actually better to put just one foot down on the ground is because you're actually more stable that way. And you get to keep your right foot on the rear brake. So the best way to do it is really when you're approaching the stoplight, you're slowing the bike down using the front brake and a little bit of the rear brake as well. And when you get closer and closer to the stop, that's when you just smoothly let go of the front brake and just keep your foot on the rear brake. And admittedly, it does look a little silly if you're waddling the whole time and you just don't have that much control of the bike. Maybe you feel like you have a little bit more balance, but the truth is, one foot down and the rear brake engaged is really all you need. Number 2, you have complete riding gear. Now, I admit, when I first got my 150 beginner learner motorcycle, I really just had the helmet that came with the bike. And then I used Chuck Taylor's Dunks and Jordans as my shoes. I used normal jeans or cargos and either a t-shirt, or maybe if I want to feel a little bit more protected, I would wear a button-down shirt. Yeah, that's right. I did not have any riding gear because I didn't know. I didn't know any better. So what is the complete riding gear? Of course, you need your helmet, your jacket, and your pants. All of them should be rated at least to a certain extent. So slide, impact, etc., etc. And then you also need the proper riding boots, which should also be rated, and gloves as well. And if you want to take it further, maybe even include an airbag. Number 3, shifting to neutral is a breeze. Now, of course, because you've probably been riding your beginner bike for maybe about a year or so, or at least close to a year, you probably have figured out the sweet spot for finding neutral on the bike, because every bike is a little bit different. And it does typically require a little bit more finesse that most beginner riders out there just really don't have. So if you manage to find that sweet spot more often than not, and you manage to get it to neutral whenever you want to, that means you're on your way becoming an intermediate rider. Number 4, maintenance intervals of your motorcycle are in check. So that means the chain, the tire pressure, oil changes, coolant changes, brake fluid, etc., etc., etc. That means you've got that pretty much covered already. Now, if you do that yourself, then bravo, congratulations to you. You're probably not a beginner anymore. But if you don't, and you bring it to a professional to do all of that service, that's fine as well, as long as you keep your bike in tip-top shape. Because if it's not in tip-top shape, then something can go wrong with the motorcycle. And what's worse, something can go wrong when you're actually riding it. So you want to avoid that, and you want to make sure that the bike is in tip-top condition every single time you're on it. Because the last thing you want is for something to go wrong when you're on a ride. Now remember, what's really important here is control whatever you can control. And the maintenance of your motorcycle is something that you can control. And if you can figure out what is wrong with your motorcycle, if there is something wrong with it, and you can just pretty much instantly, I know it's this, I know it's that, then guess what? You're probably not a beginner anymore. Let's put it this way. If you know the service intervals, or if you know when something feels off with your motorcycle by just riding it, or even just looking at it, then that's a sign that you're no longer a beginner. Remember, maintaining your motorcycle is part of owning your motorcycle. So it's your responsibility that that bike is in tip-top condition. Number 5, you are able to do U-turns and other slow speed maneuvers with really no problem. Now, this is perhaps one of the biggest hurdles that most motorcyclists will encounter when graduating from beginner status. Any rider out there can twist that throttle and just not close it. It just takes guts. But it really takes a little bit more skill to do the slow speed maneuvers. Now, if you're talking about high speed maneuvers on a racetrack, that's also a little bit different. Something as simple as a U-turn, right? I mean, that's very basic and something that not everybody out there is comfortable doing. I mean, going on a straight line, that's easy. Everybody can do that. But doing that little bit of a U-turn or some sort of maneuvers in a gymkhana situation, those require a little bit more skill and a lot of practice. And no, we're not talking about turning the bike 90 degrees, reversing, and then making the rest of the turn. We're talking about one smooth motion of a U-turn. And the kicker is, if you do that consistently, plus a few other maneuvers like slaloms, avoiding an obstacle, or the simple act of parking your motorcycle, then congratulations, you are likely no longer a beginner. So if you're still watching this video and you have said to yourself, yep, check, yep, check, yep, check, yep, check, then you are likely no longer a beginner motorcyclist and probably ready to get yourself a bigger motorcycle. And what better place to do that than right here on MotoDeal? You can log on to our website, www.motodeal.com.ph. My name is Jinno. Thanks for watching this episode of Behind a Desk.